Welcome back to the channel. Before we go ahead, I want you to hit the subscribe button, comment where you're watching from, and share this video to your loved ones. This engagement helps the channel. You can choose otherwise later on, but please engage. Let's get right into it. I want to start by saying I've hauled everything: furniture, frozen food, live cattle, hazmat loads that I wasn't allowed to ask questions about. In 15 years, I've had blowouts, black ice spinouts, a bull that somehow got loose inside the trailer somewhere outside of Laramie. I thought I'd seen every way a run could go wrong. I hadn't. It was a solo overnight haul, Memphis to Indianapolis, dry goods on a sealed trailer, 42 feet of boxes and pallets, locked and manifested, picked up from the warehouse dock at 9 p.m. standard run. I'd done it maybe 30 times. I was somewhere in western Kentucky, maybe 2 hours in, when I heard it. A knock. Not from outside, from behind me, from inside the trailer. I turned the radio down. Road noise, engine hum, wind. Then it came again. 3 knocks, slow and deliberate, like someone knocking on a door, not banging, not frantic, patient. My first thought was shifting cargo, a pallet working loose, something toppling against the wall. It happens. I noted the mile marker and kept driving, listening hard. 4 minutes later, 3 more knocks, same rhythm, same spacing, exactly the same. Cargo doesn't knock in rhythm. I pulled off at the next rest area, which took another 6 miles, and those 6 miles were the longest I've ever driven. My eyes kept going to the mirror, showing the trailer, just the blank white side of it rolling through the dark, and I kept thinking about the fact that the trailer had been sealed when I picked it up. The dock foreman had put the tag on the lock himself while I watched. I pulled into the rest area and sat for a minute with the engine running. The lot was empty except for one passenger car parked near the bathrooms, lights off, nobody visible inside. I grabbed my mag light and my tire iron and walked back to the trailer doors. I stood there for a long moment before I touched the lock. The night was still, bugs humming, highway noise in the distance. My flashlight beam on that door tag. The seal was intact. That's what I kept telling myself. The seal is intact. Nobody got in. Whatever you heard was the load shifting. Then from the other side of those doors, close enough that whoever it was had to be pressed right up against them, a voice said, "I know you're out there." I took 3 steps back without meaning to. Low voice, male, completely calm. "I'm real thirsty," it said. "Been in here a while." My hands were shaking so bad I could barely key the CB. I managed it. Got a county dispatcher on the line inside of 2 minutes. I told her I had a stowaway in a sealed trailer at the rest area off exit 65 on the Western Kentucky Parkway. She asked me if I was sure. I told her I'd had a conversation with him through the door. She told me to stay in my cab, keep the doors locked, and not open the trailer under any circumstances. I did not go back to my cab. I don't know why. To this day, I cannot explain what made me stay standing at those trailer doors. Maybe it was the voice. It didn't sound like a scared man. It didn't sound like a desperate man. It sounded like a man who was exactly where he'd planned to be. I said, "How'd you get in there?" A pause. Then, "You'd be surprised what a man can get into when he puts his mind to it." I asked him what he wanted. He said, "I wanted a ride." But then I got to thinking, and I think I want more than that now. I went back to my cab. I locked both doors, and I put the tire iron across my lap, and I watched those trailer doors in my mirror for the 22 minutes it took for 2 state police cruisers to show up. They opened the trailer with a bolt cutter. I watched from 50 yards away. There was a man inside. He'd been living in there, or planned to. He had a backpack with food and water, a sleeping bag wedged between 2 pallets, and a hunting knife with a blade long enough to make the younger of the 2 troopers take a slow step backward when they pulled it out. He also had a length of nylon rope and a list, an actual handwritten list. The trooper wouldn't show it to me, but he described it later in his report, which I got a copy of. It was a list of northbound freight routes, rest areas, and stop times. Mine was on it, 3rd from the bottom with a check mark next to it. He'd been planning this for a while. They matched him to a cargo theft ring that had been operating for 2 years. But the detective who called me a week later said quietly that cargo wasn't all they'd been taking. He said it carefully, the way people say things carefully when the full truth is worse than they want to put into words. I had my trailer interior camera checked after that. Turns out it had been there, mounted above the rear doors, this whole time. I'd never thought to use it. When I pulled the footage from that night, it showed him in the back corner, calm as a man waiting for a bus for the entire 2 hours before I stopped. He'd been back there listening to me drive, just waiting. I don't haul sealed trailers anymore if I can help it. When I have to, I check the interior camera before I leave the dock. Every single time. Because the worst thing about that night wasn't the knife or the rope or the list. It was the voice, the patience in it. The way he said, "I know you're out there," like he'd been looking forward to saying it. Like he'd rehearsed it. There's a truck stop off I-70 in eastern Colorado that I will never pull into again as long as I live. It's still there. I've driven past it since. The signs are lit. The pumps are running. The diner looks exactly the same as it did that night. From the highway, it looks like nothing. From the highway, everything looks like nothing. I pulled in around 11 p.m., coming off a 12-hour haul from Salida. I was legal on hours, but my eyes were burning and my shoulders had that deep ache that means you've been tense without realizing it for too long. I needed 4 hours of sleep and a cup of something hot. The lot was maybe a third full, 8 or 9 rigs, a handful of cars near the diner, the usual scatter. I found a spot in Lot 7, which was the back row, furthest from the building. I prefer the quiet when I'm sleeping. Lesson learned. I ate in the diner, talked to nobody, went back to my rig around midnight. I climbed into the sleeper, set my phone alarm for 4 a.m., and was out in about 3 minutes. I woke up at 2:17 a.m., and I did not know why. No alarm, no sound I could identify. Just that hard, sudden wakefulness that your body does when something is wrong before your brain catches up. I lay still in the dark and listened. My rig was moving, not driving, not rocking from wind. Something underneath it, deliberate, rhythmic. The kind of movement that comes from weight shifting, from someone climbing. I came up slow and looked through the gap in the sleeper curtain into the cab. The lot lights outside threw just enough glow through the windshield to see by. Cab was empty. Doors still locked, the little orange tabs up on both sides. The movement came again. Below me now, toward the rear. Someone was underneath my trailer. I pulled on my boots without turning on any lights. I reached under the bunk and got the wrench I keep there, a 2-foot crescent, heavy enough to matter. I sat on the edge of the bunk and thought for a moment about what I was going to do next. Then I heard voices, low, close, 2 of them, coming from directly beneath the trailer frame. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear enough. They were talking through a task, one directing, one responding, calm and methodical, the way people sound when they've done something enough times that it doesn't excite them anymore. My phone had 2 bars. I texted my dispatcher first because a call felt too loud. Somebody under my trailer at Lot 7 Eastern Colorado, I-70 truck stop, calling 911 now. I called, kept my voice barely above a whisper, gave the location. The dispatcher told me to stay in the cab and keep my doors locked and not confront anyone. One of the voices outside said something sharp and short, then silence, then fast footsteps on gravel. They'd heard me. I moved to the driver's seat and hit my headlights and my work lights and every light on that rig, flooded the whole back end of the lot. 2 men caught in the light, about 40 feet out, running toward the tree line on the south edge of the property, both in dark clothes, one carrying something I couldn't identify at that distance. They made the trees before I could get a plate or anything useful. The sheriff's deputy arrived in 11 minutes. He walked the lot, checked under my trailer, and then called for a second unit. What he found under the frame was a magnetic GPS tracker, freshly placed, still blinking. And the rear glad hand air coupling on my trailer had been tampered with. Not disconnected, just loosened, enough to cause a pressure drop in the brakes sometime in the next 50 to 200 miles, depending on conditions, enough to cause a problem at highway speed that would look like a mechanical failure. The deputy explained it to me in the flat, careful language of someone who has filled out this report before. Cargo thieves. They tag a rig, follow it, run the brakes to force a stop in a location of their choosing, somewhere empty, somewhere convenient for them. Sometimes they just take the load. Sometimes, if the driver gives them trouble or has seen their faces, it goes further than that. He said the loosened coupling was the part that bothered him. A professional cargo thief disables the truck and takes the load and leaves. He said that in his experience, the ones who tamper with brakes instead of just cutting a line or sending a message, or they don't care much whether the driver walks away. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat in a lit booth in the diner until 5 a.m., and then I drove the rest of the way to Denver with my flashers on and my speed down and my eyes on every vehicle behind me. They never caught the 2 men. The GPS unit was wiped clean. The deputy told me they'd had similar reports from 3 other drivers over the past 2 months, all at different stops along the same corridor. I think about Lot 7 every time I park in a back row. I think about how I woke up and didn't know why. I think about what my body understood before my mind did. And I think about driving those next 200 miles with compromised brakes, alone on a dark interstate, never knowing what was wrong until it was too late to matter. I parked near the building now, near the lights, near other people. The back row is quiet. I know that, but quiet isn't always safe. Sometimes quiet is exactly what they're counting on. The night I'm going to tell you about, I almost didn't report it. Not because I was afraid of getting in trouble, but because by the time it was over, I wasn't entirely sure what I had and hadn't seen. The road does things to your mind after enough hours. You start to question your own eyes. That's what I kept telling myself on the drive to the state police post, that I was tired, that I'd misread it. But you don't misread a woman screaming. I was eastbound on I-90 in South Dakota, running empty back to Sioux Falls after dropping a load in Rapid City. 2 a.m, no moon, the kind of dark that feels like it has weight. I'd been on the road for 11 hours, and I had maybe 90 minutes left. I came up on a pickup truck on the shoulder, hazards going, and a woman standing maybe 30 feet ahead of it in the emergency lane. She was waving both arms over her head, not the casual wave of someone who needs a jump. Both arms, hard and frantic. I started to slow, and then I saw the man. He came from the far side of the pickup at a run, not toward me, toward her. He crossed the distance between them in about 3 seconds and grabbed her by the arm and yanked her back toward the truck. She pulled against him. He was twice her size. She was still trying to wave at me, even while he was dragging her, looking right at my headlights. I did not slow down. I made a decision in about 1 second, and I am not ashamed of it. A lone trucker stopping in the dark for a domestic situation on a deserted interstate at 2 a.m. with a man that size is not a rescue. It's a second victim. I've read enough reports to know that. What I did instead was get on the CB and then immediately dial 911 with my phone propped on the dash. I gave them everything. Eastbound I-90, mile marker 212. Woman in the emergency lane being restrained by a male. Description of the pickup, partial plate, which I'd caught as I went past. The 911 operator kept me on the line. I pulled off at the next exit, 2 miles up, and sat with my engine running. Then the CB crackled. "Hey, eastbound truck, you the one that just passed mile marker 212? Male voice. Calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from being fine. The kind that comes from deciding to be calm. I didn't answer. I just listened. "I know you called it in," the voice said. "I watched you on the phone. Here's the thing, she's my wife. We had a fight. That's all this is. You're going to bring a lot of trouble down on a family situation that doesn't need it." I still didn't key up. The operator on my phone whispered to me, "Keep him talking if you can. Units are 7 minutes out." I picked up the CB mic. I said, "She didn't look like she wanted to go back to the truck." A long pause. Then, "She's emotional. She does this. You don't know her." I said, "She was waving at me with both arms." Another pause. Longer. When he came back, his voice had changed, just slightly, the surface of calm cracking at the edges. "You should have kept driving," he said. "Wasn't your business," I said. "Where is she right now?" He didn't answer that. I said it again. "Where is she right now?" "Put her on the radio." Silence, just static. Then the sound of movement, something is scraping, a door, and a woman's voice, muffled and tight. She said, "I'm fine. Please don't. He'll calm down." She was lying. I could hear it the way you hear it, the way fear sounds when it's trying to sound like something else. I said, "Ma'am, there are police 2 minutes away. You don't have to say anything. Just stay on the line." The man's voice came back hard and fast. "You just made a serious mistake," he said. "You have no idea what you just did." Then the CB went dead. The state troopers reached the mile marker in 6 minutes. I drove back and waited on the shoulder behind their units. The woman's name was Denise. She was 34. She had a fracture in her left orbital socket that the paramedic said was at least a day old, and fresh bruising on both wrists from that night. She had been trying to flag down vehicles for 40 minutes before I came along. 3 other cars had passed without stopping. The man, her husband, had a prior domestic violence arrest in Nebraska, charges dropped. He had a second cell phone in the truck registered to a different name. The troopers wouldn't tell me what else they found, but one of them, a woman who looked like she'd been doing this job long enough to be tired of it, pulled me aside while the paramedics were with Denise and said, "You did the right thing not stopping." She said it like she meant more by it than just that night. Denise looked at me once across the lights and the activity. I don't know what I expected. Gratitude, maybe, or relief. What I saw was something more complicated than either of those things. The look of someone who understood what had almost happened and wasn't ready yet to feel anything clean about it. I drove the rest of the way to Sioux Falls in silence. No radio, no CB. Just the road and the dark and the sound of my own breathing. I've thought about those 3 cars that passed her. 40 minutes of waving and nobody stopped. I understand it. I do. You can't know what you're driving into. The road teaches you to keep moving, keep your eyes forward, not your problem. But I keep coming back to her face in my headlights, both arms up, looking right at me. Some things you can't unsee, some things you're not supposed to.